This is the Nintendo Switch, just with a 2 next to it. And you're gonna hear me say that a lot in this review video. Recently, everyone's been talking about the Nintendo Switch 2, and rightfully so, because it's piggybacking off of one of Nintendo's most successful gaming consoles. Now I said one of, I want you to guess, what do you think is the most successful gaming platform Nintendo's ever sold by units sold? Some might guess the NES, some might say the Wii, and some might say the Virtual Boy. Who are you people? Well, you're wrong for both of those. In fact, it's actually the Nintendo DS. But you wanna know what the second most successful console ever is? The Nintendo Switch. So yeah, it makes sense to make a second iteration of the second most successful gaming platform ever to be sold. There's just one problem with that. The console costs $450. Oh yeah, did I forget to mention that games cost another $80? I didn't have a Nintendo Switch case to use because it costs $80. These two things are gonna be the biggest reason as to why people say the Nintendo Switch 2 is not worth it. But is that a valid reason? Well, yeah, any reason's a valid reason at the end of the day. But I wanna look at the whole picture because 450 beans for anything is a lot of money, whether it's a gaming platform, whether it's eggs, whether it's a date for a girl that still would not love you no matter how many times you try and call, please come back to me. But I quickly wanna look at the Nintendo Switch 2 just quickly in a vacuum because ultimately the Switch 2 is one of, if not the best Nintendo consoles ever to be released. Now I emphasize in a vacuum because that does not consider the price point. That does not consider the price of the games. And that also does not consider the Nintendo Switch 1. Think about what you get with the Nintendo Switch 2. You get a home console gaming system that you can also take on the go. And you get a ton of free games to play just right away on the platform. Fortnite, Fall Guys, Rocket League, Overwatch, Apex Legends, if you're into that kind of thing. But more importantly, and what a lot of people forget, is that you have the whole entire Switch 1 game library playable on the Switch 2. You can play all the Switch 1 games right on the system. This is the definitive way to play Nintendo Switch games. It just comes at a price point of $450. So if you do not already have a Nintendo Switch 1, a Nintendo Switch Lite, a Nintendo LCD, OLCD, HD, TT TV, then you would get the Nintendo Switch 2 to not only play all of those Switch 1 games, but future-proof yourself to get all of those future Nintendo Switch 2 games. But we're in the big 2.5, and more than likely, everybody has at least 3 of these systems. You have one, your sister has one, your dog even probably has a Nintendo Switch 1. So more than likely, most people are gonna be upgrading from this to this. And is this really the guy she tells you not to worry about? Well, in a way, not really. Like I said at the beginning of the video, the Nintendo Switch 2 is a Switch 1, just with a 2 next to it. Same style of Joy-Cons, just magnetically magnetized. Same home gaming console experience. Even has the same main menu. You'd think they would have changed it just a little bit. Maybe adding different colors to the home screen rather than white and black. Or at least sold us something, because I know that's what you want to do, Nintendo. But actually talking about the specs of the Switch 2, running at full frames at 4K resolution, this truly is one of the best looking Mario Kart games of all time. And I'm just surprised that they're able to get 4K out of a handheld gaming system, even though it was expected and really due, because the Switch 1 on the dock, ooh, that was rough. And the fact that it comes with Joy-Cons that hopefully doesn't have stick drift, and you can also use all of your Switch 1 controllers on the Switch 2, whether it is the old Joy-Cons just in handheld mode, because these can't actually fit on the Switch 2, or the Switch 1 Pro controller, or any of the controllers for the Switch 1, or even some of the online gaming controllers like the GameCube or the Nintendo 64 all can connect to Bluetooth. The only issue that I have with the portable aspect and the home docking aspect is that you can't use the Switch 1 dock on the Switch 2, which, like, okay. To get it to 4K resolution and full frames, that's a sacrifice I'm willing to make. It just sucks because I have 3 Nintendo Switch 1 docks that are basically useless now. Well, ultimately it's worth it because the magnetics for the Joy-Cons are just so satisfying to snap on and off. This is a game all on its own. A lot of people will hate the fact that it literally is just a Switch 1 with the 2 next to it. But then I go back to those sales numbers and then I reiterate, why fix what ain't broke? I mean, when you're the best selling home console and the second best selling console of all time from Nintendo, why would they do something different? But you can also say that for the Wii, and well, but I think the biggest problem with the Wii U at the time was the fact that there just wasn't any games. I don't even think it was necessarily the console's fault because the setup was there. It just missed the dunk. And I think right now we don't have hindsight with the Switch 2 because we only have one game with it. But by golly, this is a really good game to release for the Switch 2. I mean, a Mario Kart game. Like, that's right next to a Legend of Zelda or just a standard Mario game like Mario Odyssey to have as a launch title. And I know I sound like I'm glazing it because this is probably the last time you're gonna hear me talk good about the Nintendo Switch, so I just wanna get my good graces out of the way. Mario Kart World is a fantastic upgrade from Mario Kart 8. However, some people might not like it because of the 24-player mode, some people might not like it because it's a mushroom simulator, and some people might not like it because of the main menu. So ultimately, you can like Mario Kart 8 over Mario Kart World and still get a ton of value from not buying the Switch 2 and still playing Mario Kart 8 on the Switch 1. While you do get better hardware and Mario Kart World, and you ultimately future-proof yourself for future Nintendo Switch 2 titles, which you already know are not going to be playable on the Nintendo Switch 1. I mean, we can already look at Donkey Kong, and that's going to be a hit game that is not going to be playable on the Switch 1. Let me just remind you of one little thing. The Nintendo Switch 2 just came at one of the roughest points, at least in America. Because it's not only just $450, you're also paying $80 for games. Games that you don't even technically own because now they just come with key cards. That's opening a whole different can of worms. But you also have Nintendo Switch Online at 2 different price points. While you do get value with the most expensive version, it's a lot. It's a lot of money just coming out right at once. A lot of money that people, at least in America, do not have because of tariffs, because of job loss, because of rent prices just going through the roof. Like, there are just so many things that are just taking so many people's money that willingly spending about $500 just to play one single video game is not really in people's budget. And Nintendo knows this because they've been in business since, what, the 1800s selling a Fuda paper cards? They're not a dumb business, but some people won't call them dumb. They'll just call them a Yu-Gi-Oh card. This is how much I spent on groceries yesterday, about $120. Just things in America are more expensive and people are trying to allocate funds to things that they actually need, like eating. So unless Nintendo can make this edible, which I technically haven't tried yet, so let me try here. Yeah, some people aren't gonna be willingly spending $450 to play Mario Kart. And that's okay. Like, I don't think people should get in arguments of where they allocate their funds to, because ultimately it's gonna be based on what you can afford right now. And for $500, nearly half a grand to play one video game on a new future-proof console, it's just not in people's budget. And even if it is in people's budget, they just don't really see it worthwhile because they can play most, if not all, the games with the exception of Mario Kart World on the Nintendo Switch 1. Show they can even play a Mario Kart that is fantastic and looks great and plays possibly even better than the World version on the Switch 1 with Mario Kart 8. Plus, you can get into the argument about building a PC or getting a PlayStation 4 or Xbox, and that's the other thing, is that at the time of the Switch 1's launch, there was nearly no competition, if any at all. But in the big 2.5, not only do you still have the other two big gaming consoles with PlayStation and Xbox, but in terms of portable gaming, you have the Steam Deck with tons, and I mean tons of games to choose from at reasonable, if not dirt cheap prices. You also have the newly released Xbox ROG portable gaming system, which if you're a fanboy of Xbox, you're gonna love that system as well. Plus, you also just have competition within the Nintendo tree, like the Switch 1, the 3DS, a regular DS. I have a 3DS, I just don't have it ready for me, but you get what I'm trying to say. And that's why I think the Nintendo Switch 2 just came at a terrible, terrible time. If this were to release a year ago and possibly at even just a $400 price tag and games being at $70, I think more people would be okay with that. But it didn't, and we can't talk about what ifs, we can only talk about right now. Well, my beginning argument still stands. If you don't already have a Switch 1, the Nintendo Switch 2 is an awesome console to dive into because of the whole entire Switch 1 gaming library that is playable on the Switch 2. But that's for like 7 people. For the people that have a Switch 1 already that are debating on getting the Switch 2, here's what I'm gonna tell you. If money is not tight, and if you don't care about other gaming platforms, and if you just really like Nintendo, and if you see games coming out in the future that you like, even if it's just Mario Kart World, then I think getting the Switch 2 is worth the upgrade. But that's for like, what, 12 people? For the majority of people that have a Switch 1 and money is tight, the Switch 2 is just not worth it. At least right now. Will Nintendo drop the price of the Switch 2? Probably not. But we have kind of seen this happen before, at least with the 3DS. The 3DS, which I'll just remind you, at one point was sitting on shelves because of similar gripes that the Nintendo Switch 2 is going through right now. Why would I spend money on the 3DS when my Nintendo DS can not only play the whole entire library of DS games, but it can also play Game Boy games? But you wanna know what Nintendo did in 2013? They not only lowered the price of the 3DS, it gave credit to people that bought the 3DS on launch, but then they also released Pokemon X and Y. So that's what I think is gonna happen with the Switch 2. Just release tons, and I mean tons of games to make you want to get the Switch 2. And I think that's how they're gonna make the Nintendo Switch 2 successful, is not through the Wii U route, but rather the 3DS route. And I think that is when the Nintendo Switch 2 is gonna be worth it. If a price drop ever comes in the future, but more than likely when there's at least 3 games that you want to play that is only playable on the Switch 2. Do not upgrade your Switch 1 to a better version of the Switch 1, because I think at that point, you're just wasting future money. But also look at other consoles as well, because maybe there's going to be some games that you really want to play, like GTA 6 is coming in, so maybe you want to save your money for a PlayStation 5 or Xbox Series X, because people asking for GTA 6 to be playable on PlayStation 4, what are you doing? You have a better chance of it being playable on the Switch 2 than on the PlayStation 4. But those are my final thoughts on the Nintendo Switch 2. Keep saving your money, wait for a game that you really want to play, and at that point, pull the trigger for a fun gaming console, because gaming shouldn't be stressful, it should be fun. But let me know what you think about the Nintendo Switch 2. Do you think it's worth getting it right now, or do you not think it's worth the $450 or $500 price point? Just let me know in the comments down below. But until then, I love you guys. Thank you guys for watching. More videos to come, and bye.